ओङ्काररूपगमनीयपदारविन्द श्रीवञ्चिभूपकुलदैवत विश्वरूपा शेषेशयान शिवपूजन पद्महस्ता श्रीपद्मनाभा मम देहि करावलम्बम्. At the outset, let me take a minute to pay homage to that esteemed Guru, Swami Chinmaya Ji, whose living memory is manifest here. Respected Swami Mitranand Ji and members of the world family, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think I have done anything negative to Chinmaya Mission, but I feel now that by making me speak next to Sri Muhammad, you're doing me a great, great disservice. What have I done to you? That should have been the only talk, because whatever may come after that would definitely take on the stature of a very big anti-climax. But I have to thank you also. I have been one of his fans. First time I'm meeting him, but so much about him we have heard, and we have had some vicarious connections also, and it was just wonderful listening to him. In Malayalam, I'm not going to speak Malayalam, I will speak only in English, but in Malayalam there is a very famous prayer which has in the second stanza, Gaganamendoralbhudam Samudramendoralbhudam. Then the rest is different, but maybe I will take the liberty to change it a little and say Gaganamendoralbhudam Samudramendoralbhudam Mohammadendoralbhudam Mohammadendoralbhudam. Anyway, Swamiji has ordered me and I'm here. So I have been told, of course, the theme we all know. And again, always it is better to speak first. But here also he has taken a march over me. The very same lines I was going to say, he said. I heard a sound, thud. It was my heart falling out. So I had to catch it back and put it back in place. Anyway, repetition for emphasis, they say. So my presentation, unlike his, unlike most of the other presentations that I have heard, which were all extempo, I am going to read out. So it will be a structured presentation, which I normally don't do. I prefer extempo, but here I thought it is better because time limit is there. And what was given to me, the topic that was given to me the topics that were given to me were culture and art. By the time I got back my breath, I told Mr. Jayashankar and his sister, I said, I can't speak on both because both of them are so voluminous, Indian art and Indian culture. So I'll stick to culture, art will also come to it. So this is a somewhat structured presentation, and I hope it should have come first, so that when his came, you would all be vitalized and enthusiastic. Anyway, here it goes. Again, repetition. I am Nijaparo Vedi, Ganana Lekuchetasam, Udara Charitanam tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. These immortal words are taken from the Mahabalipuram and much later in time incorporated into the very popular Panchatantra authored by Vishnu Sharma. The concept of globalization was very much there in the Indian ethos from time immemorial, emphasizing on the aspect of the whole world as one family. However, In the modern Western perspective, globalization is redefined in commercial terms, and unfortunately, the world is being reduced to one large market. The idea of universal brotherhood has been the life breath that runs across the subcontinent India. From then to now, the same chant, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, has come percolating down the centuries without a change. For us, the oneness of brotherhood did not stop with human beings. It extended to flora and fauna, to the static blessings of nature like the mountains and the rocks. It was well-being for all on earth. Sage Yajnavalkya, the illustrious exponent of Vedanta, who has been given the time slot of around 6th century BC or before, 6th century before Christ or before, advises thus, quote, "It is not our heritage, still less the color of our skin, that produces virtue. Virtue must be practiced. Therefore, let no one do to others what he would not have done to himself." Unquote. The same has been observed in Mahabharata. Atmana pratikulani pareshamna samacharet. So speaks the voice of Indian heritage. It appears relevant to chant a few lines, which almost every Hindu household used to chant when getting up in the morning. Samudravasane Devi Parvatastana Mandide Hari Priye Namastubhyam Padasparsham Kshamaswame. O Mother Earth, who has the ocean as your apparel, the mountains as your breasts, O adored one of Hari, I prostrate you and crave your pardon for placing my feet on you. Atharva Veda has the same idea in it, Mata Bhumi Putroham Prithvya, meaning earth is our mother and we are her children. This idea focuses on the oneness of creation. This sublime concept has, by and large, become confined to theory, and so is often conspicuous by its absence in the world scenario. Like all of you here, I too hope and pray that instead of being capsuled to papers and presentations and platforms, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam will bloom alive in practical application to some extent at least. May the red color of precious human blood be replaced by the blessed glow of goodwill. Now I move on to the topic assigned to me, Indian culture. I'm sorry, I forgot to look at the time. How much? 16, 12, 13 minutes. No, I mean, how much now? So you just, and I'll change the gear and make it 4th gear and read fast. Incomparable and splendorous, this grand heritage of Bharat soars high on the wings of unspecified ages to reach the zenith on the graph of man's imposing history, even as it cascades radiance in uninterrupted flow down the centuries, dusty with the tread of time. If I may be so presumptuous as to rename it, I would address Indian heritage as the mighty Indian experience. The subject being so vast as the unbound skies, as deep as the unfathomed seas, and as old as the dawn of civilization, it is next to impossible to do any real justice to it within restricted space. Hence, only a presentation in compromise as an introduction of sorts is being attempted here with the supplication that the lapses may kindly be condoned. Out of the 21 acclaimed civilizations of the ancient world, scholarly identification rests with only 8 as having continued to exist even as the others slowly faded out of the map of centuries on the move. Rome, Greece, India, Mesopotamia, Egypt, China, Mexico, and Africa seem to be the most popularly accepted 8, with their India being identified as the oldest by the majority consensus of opinion within the fraternity of scholars. Even from this number, other than perhaps Africa, which by and large remains concealed behind drapes, India's is the one major culture of impressive age to have surmounted cultural challenges and foreign impact and triumphed over them without much sacrifice of its fabled heritage and essential values. This has become possible as she was able to guard her original spiritual legacy without sanctioning its retreat into the memory of scholars, selected scholars, which was the fate of its contemporaries. The famous historian Arnold Toynbee exclaimed thus, that the wonder that is India. She has the rare fortune of inheriting a legacy which, while imprinted with footfalls of mighty time, has providentially been spared of erosion and corrosion of such proportions as to bring about defacement or mutilation, which has been the fate of others. This is despite the fact that this subcontinent, on which a significant proportion of the world's humanity lives, was the melting pot of heterogeneous cultures. Swami Vivekananda, whose lion's roar thundered across continents, proclaims, quote, "Our sacred motherland is a land of religion and philosophy, the birthplace of spiritual giants, the land of renunciation, where and where alone, from the most ancient to the most modern times, there has been the highest ideal of life open to man." Again, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam echoes. The enchantment of this heritage is such that age does not wither or custom stale its infinite variety, as with the apologies to Shakespeare for mutilating his quotation. The impact on the universal map of India's philosophy and religion, her ethics and moral laws, the extravagance of her art and architecture, her inventions and discoveries have been of such staggering proportions that it can only be capsuled as holistic. And it is this cultural heritage that is the life breath of Bharat, that unique Indian experience, which makes these sacred sands so steeped in antiquity vibrate to the mantric incantations and tantric disciplines with such power that they are felt and heard above the explosive shock of rockets tearing ozone levels as they race up to a rendezvous with uncharted destinations, or above the ominous impact of modern methods of annihilation. Again, it is this Indian experience which demands that progress must be an extension of the past and not an alienation from it. It is the quintessence of Indianness which consciously or unconsciously throbs within her ancient heart as legacy of the past, as foundation of the present, and as promise for the future. It may appear difficult to assess the area in which India's heritage has had the greatest value, with one exception, namely her spiritual stature, which finds echoes in all planes of her life. The signature of her exceptional individuality has been deeply engraved on all known areas of human activity and evolution, whether it be history, literature, linguistics, philosophy, religion, arts and sciences, medicine, trade and commerce, travel, ethics, or morality. We can only briefly touch upon some here, but for each name that is mentioned, homage is necessarily and respectfully offered to the legion of names that pass by unmentioned. For the majority of revelations of spiritual and mystic India, which the more materialistic Western expression might label as discoveries, credit rested at the doors of the rishis of the far-off past, who arrived at their conclusions mainly through their spiritual powers, aided by the 5 eyes, rather than through direct applied science. These 5 eyes were later identified by Western psychiatry and read as intuition, intellect, intelligence, introspection, and instinct. India's contributions specifically to history are not being dealt with separately here, as the great Indian evolution is in itself history, every aspect creating, depicting, or developing the history of its inhabitants and races, even as it baffles measured time at every time. The powerful dynasties, the mighty kings, war and peace, victories and defeats, richness of tribal lore, social and political records, all stand as imperishable witness of a long, long chronicle that unravels itself. They are captured and magnified in the huge forts, palaces, temples, monuments, and exciting excavations, or encompassed or compressed through epigraphy with the help of cave inscriptions, stone-cut inscriptions, palm leaf documents, copper plates, hieroglyphics, and so on. Man's date with destiny is not special to India. What makes us special is, unmarked calendars apart, her incredible capacity to survive, thus carving out an unending exploration of civilization into space and time, which translates as a history. Impressive indeed is the material available, confirming India's maritime movement as global. In the Rig Veda, Varuna, the sea god, is credited with the knowledge of oceanic paths, later adopted by ships. Innumerable vessels plying the vast water bodies with diverse cargo at ports of call even in distant lands like Rome, Egypt, China, etc., and served as ambassadors of Indian culture along with trade and commerce. Knowledge of building carriers ranging from frail small country crafts to ships of impressive proportions, like those in Kerala's Calicut, evoke admiration. Wooden boats of many times command great popularity in many states, though geographically far apart, like Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, Nagaland, etc., for traditional festivals and boat racing. Precision in rowing and well-loved boat songs keep the heart of the water festival culture emphatically alive. It attracts tourists from over as well in huge numbers. India's age-old language, Sanskrit, is complex with innumerable branches. It envelops extreme beauty of expression with awesome command of both brevity and expansiveness alike, with many types of interpretation. Thus, Sanskrit stands unmatched. Will Durant, the famous thinker-writer, exclaims, quote, "India was the mother of our race, and Sanskrit the mother of European languages," unquote. To Sanskrit goes the distinction of many mega works, including the first ever text to be written in the world, the Rig Veda, with its 1,028 hymns and 21 branches. Each Indian language has its own array of great scholars down the ages like Kalidasa. Bengal's famous man of letters, Sri Rabindra Tagore, was one of the few Indians to be bestowed with a Nobel Prize for Literature. A wide panorama of India's art, both active and static, unfolds in an ongoing process of development, exhibiting awesome continuity of tradition, the like of which appears to have no parallel. Classic and folk art moved side by side as an outward expression of the blossoming of bhakti. Indian art has a well-developed system of aesthetics and is considered as idealistic and symbolic rather than ritualistic, and has generated international admiration. A few of its branches are being briefly touched upon here. Music and its presentation, other performing arts and visual arts were deemed to be expression of the Supreme Being, who is the embodiment of all beauty, and as a spiritual exercise for God realization. String, wind, and percussion instruments seen in India are greatly impressive. Bharata Muni of the 1st or 2nd century BC authored Natya Shastra, which is an encyclopedia on performing arts. A much, much later contribution, Balarama Bharatam, written by Karthika Thirunal Ramavarma, Maharaja of Travancore in the 18th century, is the only known substantial treatise on the earlier work. Performing arts like Manipuri, Kathak, Odissi, Kuchipudi, Kathakali, Mohiniyattam, Bharatanatyam, Yakshaganam, etc., are too many for even general mention. In May, this is a very happy thing, in May 2001, UNESCO, for the first time, proclaimed 19 19 of the world's most remarkable examples of cultural expressions, describing them as, quote, masterpieces of oral and intangible heritage of humanity, unquote. Among these 19, Kerala's ancient Sanskrit theatre form Kudiyatam was the only one from the Indian subcontinent to gain this exceptional recognition from the UNESCO. Static arts include architecture, sculpture, painting, etc. The masterpieces produced in these fields translate as emotionally charged poetry in stone, wood, and colors, inclusive of murals derived from natural substances. As one among the wonders of the world stands the marble Taj Mahal in Agra. The marvel's wrought in temples and in other structures all over India are standing ovation to the master craftsmen of yore, with the granite musical pillars being just one example. In places the labor of love of Buddhist and Jain monks are very much in evidence, with Ellora, Ajanta, Chitral, etc. crossing the mind. The Indian textiles continue to command a high level in international appreciation, but I'm not going on into it. A glance of India's breathtaking contributions to science is attempted. Aryabhata calculated the time taken by the Earth to orbit the Sun 1,000 years before Galileo and others. Sage Bharadwaja's discoveries on sound techniques and aviation, India's discovery of zero, Madhava of Sangamagrama's evaluation of pi, and such weighty contributions of innumerable personages in these realms are astounding. Vedic mathematics, yet another triumph of India, commands international acceptance. It has now entered the sphere of modern application. Ayurveda, the scripture of life, is the Upaveda of the Atharva Veda. Sage Charaka, father of physical medicine, and Sage Shushruta, offering surgical alternatives inclusive of plastic surgery, came long before Hippocrates. Holistic treatment, including rejuvenation, treatment of animals, and so on, offering astounding solutions, were familiar to ancient India. Law, administration, and intricacies of defense all claimed excellence in the Indian life. Ancient India placed a very high value on education with minute precision. The education of man in Vedic tradition was centered basically on two types of knowledge, one which was universal in its contents and application, and the other which was local in its relevance and contemporary importance. Gurukula system of education seen from Pauranic times has survived, though in compromise to date. The world-famous universities of Nalanda, Takshashila, Kandalur Shala, etc. speak for themselves. I have to digress here for 1 minute and say that in 1817, Rani Gowri Parvati Bayi, Regent Maharani to Maharaja Aswathi Thirunal, proclaimed what is known as a re-edict of education, bringing in state-sponsored compulsory education at primary level to all. This is supposed to be the all-world first, and this proclamation is displayed in UNESCO. India's role in the planes of ethics, spirituality, religion, and all-encompassing philosophy offering eternal values stands on its own pedestal of eminence. The fundamental Hindu principle of oneness of creation and the fourfold division of the great Vedas are profoundly amazing. The Vedas, the 6 Shastras, the 18 Puranas, Itihasas, etc. proffer a tremendous variety of recorded enlightenment. The very essence of the 18 Puranas finds expression in Sri Vedavyasa's clarion call. In Malayalam, Ashtadesha Puranathil Vyasan Chonnadu Randutan Paropakarame Punyam Papame Parapidanam. Meritorious indeed is rendering service to others, while sinful indeed is rendering them harm. The Srimad Bhagavata Mahapurana and the two great epics Ramayana and Mahabharata, inclusive of the Bhagavad Gita, command immortal glory. They aim to achieve harmony amidst fellow beings and to ultimately usher in the global family. Hinduism offers freedom of choice which is unique. Akashal patidam toyam yatha gacchati sagaram sarvadeva namaskaram keshavam pradigacchati. As different streams having their origin in the firmament mingle their waters in the sea, so, O Lord, the different paths men take all lead to thee. Different systems like jnana, bhakti, karma, yoga, nature worshipped, famed schools of philosophy like Sri Shankaracharya's Advaita, non-dualism, Sri Ramanuja's Vishishta Advaita or qualified non-dualism, and Sri Madhvacharya's Dvaita or dualism offer vast range of options. Jainism, Buddhism, and Sikhism, all of India, have had profound impact on world philosophy. The concepts of dharma, karma, and punarjanma are deep-rooted in Indian ethos and belief. Sri Chandrasekharendra Saraswati Swamikal, Paramacharya of Kanchi, authored the immortal lines commencing with Maitrim Bhajata, to be specifically rendered by Bharatratnam M.S. Subbulakshmi. The platform was the General Assembly at the United Nations on UN Day in 1966. This stirring exhortation strikes the chord of cosmic conscience and again showcases Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Its translation is as follows: serve with friendship and humility, which will conquer the hearts of all. Look on yourself, look on others as yourself. Renounce war, forswear competition that harms. Give up aggression on what belongs to others. The large heart of Mother Earth, like Kamadhenu, is ever ready to fulfill all our desires. God, our Father, is ever compassionate to all. Restrain yourself, give generously, have compassion for others. O humanity, may prosperity and happiness descend on all. Shreyo bhuyat sakala jananam. Hare.